Good morning, guys. Good morning. We have something to talk about today. We are going back to talking about sheep and victims. So last episode, we really hammered on certain companies and corporations that are screwing you over, institutions that are screwing you over, the reason they're screwing you over, and the conclusion was that the reason that they're screwing you over is because you let them. You do have a choice. You do have the power to make something different happen, but you allow them to. Now let's go abroad, and let's take a look. So we discussed how a lot of Americans are sheep. And we said that even though we're saying that Americans are sheep, like when I say that, I don't mean 100% of individuals in America. What I mean is over 50% of individuals in America are sheep. But on the world stage, America is not a sheep. Now, I've had to put a little bit of thought into this. I don't have as much time as I wish I had to sit down and write these ideas, so I'm always going straight off the top of my head. So you're gonna have to excuse me. So do you remember what a sheep is? A sheep is someone who has all the information at their fingertips. They have shepherds. What are shepherds? We haven't really gone over shepherds too much. Shepherds are people who are caretakers. Their intention is for your well-being. Their intention is for their children's well-being. Then there are predators. Predators are just others in sheep's clothing. Predators are better than sheep. The only difference between a shepherd and a predator is their intention. The predator's intention is to take someone's life, or to oppress someone, or to get some kind of service out of someone for lesser than what they know they owe that person. Predators are going to like institutions like slavery. Predators are going to like to screw over people with $50 cans of baby formula. Those are predators. Now, a lot of the people in the top 20% in America, even though they might be sheepish in certain regards, they are predators. The reason they are predators is because they know better, and they even have the resources to take time to do better. That's why the corporations, the CEOs, the people who are in the top 20%, that's why they're predators. Now, predators and the sheep often dress the same. But like I just said, what you're going to notice is many a times the predators seem to have a lot more resources than just the baseline sheep. They're gonna stand out a little bit. And there's a reason that they stand out, and that reason is because something like 20% of Americans own something like 75% of all the wealth in America, so you're going to notice them. But a lot of times what's going to happen is you're going to sympathize, you know what I mean, with these CEOs and these top 20 percenters. You're gonna think, wow, you know what? I mean, this guy's great. Next thing you know, you start worshiping them, or you see someone else doing it. Like, I don't know, if Jeff Bezos walked in, or someone else famous, Tiger Woods, man. I don't know, people go crazy, right? People, especially women, they worship these top 20 percenters. They actually think that they're more moral than themselves because they're in a higher economical class. See what's happening there? But that's directly tied to, exactly in that same sense, how you know what the predators are. Think about that for a moment. Think about what I mean. Think about what I mean. All right, we'll be revisiting this. Now, there are sheepish predators. Sheepish predators are going to be CEOs and corporates and stuff like that. They're going to be institutions and people with a lot of resources that don't have the conviction or the backbone to take the necessary steps towards justice and peace. Sheepish victims are our law system. Sheepish victims are our education systems. Sheepish victims are oftentimes our military factions. Sheepish victims are oftentimes our main governmental institutions. You hear me? So remember back to when I was saying that, well, not all Americans as individuals are sheep, only something like above 50%. And remember how I said on the world stage, Americans are actually shepherds? On the world stage, you have Russia, a predator, China, a predator, US, a shepherd, and then you have other countries like Israel. You could call them a sheepish predator. And I'm going to get into the reason that Israel is a sheepish predator. It's going to be very interesting to you. Are you still following me? Now, recall back to when I said there is probably something like 20 to 10% of the American population that are actually shepherds. And because of this very resilient 15 through 20%, America on the world stage happens to be a shepherd. So when someone is from outside looking in, what they see is a shepherd capable of great violence or capable of bringing peace. That's what you'll see when you look from the outside. When you look from the US and you look at China, what you see is a predator, well, because they're a communist government who does not allow free speech and they oppress their people. I'm not saying they're mass murdering them, like Iran did. What I'm saying is that their people do not have the freedoms that we do. And I would argue that if you don't have the freedom of the press and you don't have the freedom of speech, well, then you're not free. You're not free. You're a slave to your own institutions. So when you look from the outside in at China, what we see is a predator. But when we break it down as individuals in China and we take a look at them and we think to ourselves, well, actually, what are the individuals in China? What they are actually are victims. The reason that they are not sheepish victims like people in Gaza or people in Iran is because China has not had a free election in so long that the victims in China don't actually have the proper opportunities to change their institutions. They don't have the authority or the power to enact the changes that they want to see. And that is the reason that the individuals in China are actually victims. Now, the Chinese population, I presume, probably has something like 25% are predators. And that 25% are so resilient and so effective at what they do and oppressing their people and making sure that they don't have freedom of the press and freedom of speech, that from the outside looking in, what you see is a predator. Iran is a sheepish victim. Now, Iran, mind you, used to be a Christian nation. Did you know that Iran was freaking Persia? What the frick happened? We all know what happened. We know what happened to Iran. How in the world did they go from a Christian nation to a Muslim nation? Well, they were conquered, just like a lot of other people were in multiple other countries. They were conquered. That's how that happened. Google right now what Iran looked like under Christian rule or not under Muslim rule. Look at what they looked like before the Muslim regime took charge. Now, the hard part about Iran, when we get down at the individualistic take and we want to assess them as a society, we have more moving parts than we really do in America and China. America and China are fairly black and white, but places like Iran are not going to be. Because you're going to have a percentage of the population that are pure victims. They haven't gotten themselves in these situations. They don't deserve the situation that they're in. But they make up too small of a percentage of the population to actually enact change. They could throw their lives away, and they are responsible for the doings of their nation, but because they make such a small percentage, they would just be losing their lives. Okay, now another percentage of the population of Iran are sheepish victims. Those sheepish victims are the Muslims who want better for their children and who want for their country to prosper. They're done freaking hating Israel. They're done hating America, and they understand that what they need is a democratic society in which the people can vote. Are you following still? Are you following? They are sheepish victims because they make up enough of the population that they can actually enact the changes that they want to see. If the sheepish victims pair themselves or they start the revolt, the victims will likely join in. And with the victims and the sheepish victims, you have enough people to where you may very well be able to enact change. Now, here's why the European countries are freaking sheep and not shepherd. Let us say that this revolt really occurred. It kind of did, and then Iran mowed down a large majority of the people who were rioting or protesting. I don't know what you want to call it, but I know the same people who are cheering on Iran would have lost their shit if President Trump would have mowed down rioters or protesters in the same way that Iran did. You know, those same moral people who don't believe in that are the same people who are cheering for Iran and hoping that America stops bombing them. Those same people. Oh. All right. Where were we at? See, I get distracted. I gotta get on meds, man. I gotta get on meds. So we got our victims, our sheepish victims. Okay, that's right. The European nations, and what are they called? The EAU, AEU. They're like the useless Muslims is what I call them, because they don't really do much. Those ones, you know, they don't really take in Muslim refugees often. You know, they don't really, you know, stop terrorism from happening in other nations. They just kind of keep to themselves because they kind of, you know, don't want to fix the problem of their other brethren. Those people, you know, those ones. Yeah, Saudi Arabia, I think it is. Egypt, maybe Jordan's involved in that, and some more. You know, those ones. Those ones. Plus, the sheepish nations like the UK, Switzerland, Sweden, and so forth, right? Australia, I don't know, they're not European. Australia's not European. But Scandinavian, European, okay, they're all sheep. They're all sheep. Let us say that in this scenario, Iran mowed down the rioters / protesters, and there is factual evidence that they mass slaughtered many of those protesters and rioters. And then what would happen? Which nation, you tell me, which nation, if not America, was going to say, holy crap, right now there is a protest, there is a riot, the sheepish victims and the victims are trying to change their lives. They're trying to ensure a future for their children. They want freedom to speak. They want freedom to dress. They want freedom to put out the information that they see fit in their society. That's what's happening. Who in the world, which nation was actually going to do something? Start naming them. Put them in the freaking chat. Which ones? Which ones were actually going to do something for them? You see, that's the other problem. That's the problem, you see, because the sheepish victims and the victims actually have moral obligations to get themselves out of the situation that they're in. For your life is in your own hands. That is the harsh reality of the world that we live in. Your life and your children's life are in your hands. Even if you live in an oppressive government, where it is going to take your life, your wife's life, and all of your neighbor's life to ensure a better future for your children. Just because you are a victim, just because you are weak, and just because you're poor does not mean that you have no moral obligations. I want you to understand that. It is so important. You actually have moral obligations. This goes back to what I was saying. A lot of people think that because someone is rich, because they have resources, because they're a politician, because they're a CEO, because they're a business owner, because they're in the top 25% of income earners, that they have all of the moral obligations. They're responsible for your peace. They're responsible for your happiness. They're responsible for your social programs. They're responsible for the well-being of your children. They are not. They are not. And every time that you look at yourself as a victim and you keep giving up your power, you give up your guns, you give up your options for safe food to eat, and you keep buying crap food, you keep voting for the same shitty politicians, you are screwing yourself over. You actually have to take responsibility for your own life and for your children's life. So I'm tired of hearing that, oh, civilians, civilians are not freaking innocent. I'm gonna say it again. Civilians are not innocent. Civilians, what they are at the end of the day, if they are unable to enact change, the harsh reality, I hate to say it, but I want you to hear it. If you have a civilian population that wants better, that wants to take their own lives into their own hands, but they do not, and they don't take the steps needed to get there, they are cowards. Yep. I said it. I said it. Civilians are cowards. Civilians are cowards who are too afraid, perhaps with good reason, but make no mistake, they are too afraid to do what they know that they have to do to secure the lives of their children. Oftentimes, civilians are the sheep that are putting themselves in the situations that they are in. Now, we talked about the different kind of sheep for a reason. Because there are sheepish civilians and there are victim sheep civilians. There is a difference. And we should have a different level of empathy for the civilian victims versus the civilian sheepish victims. We should look at them different. I know right now that you're thinking, well, you're thinking in your head, let's give it to him that victims and sheepish victims do have moral duties and obligations, and that their lives are in their own hands. But we still will argue that the CEOs and the more resources you have, if you're a politician, maybe you're a scientist, you're someone who holds more knowledge, you're more educated, that you should have more moral obligation or duties, that the burden should be heavier on your shoulders than it is on others. I would agree. What we're going to disagree on is if we were to say what percentage of moral obligations and duties should sit on the shoulders of those who are educated, of those who are powerful, and those who have acquired resources. If we were to ask what percentage of the burden should sit on their shoulders, I think that's where we would actually disagree. And I think that we should take an episode maybe sometime to talk a little bit about what percentage we think should sit on the CEO's shoulders, should sit on the politicians' shoulders. Oh my gosh, so many S's and sh's. Oh, okay. Now, I hope you guys are still following. I want you guys to really think about what I've said here. I want you to really think about what I've said. Because if what I'm saying is making sense to you, then this is going to change how foreign conflicts should occur. And this is going to explain to you, it's probably already clicked if you're a couple steps ahead, why the European nation, why the EAU, and why so many individuals in America are sheep. This is going to also explain to you why it is so gosh dang hard for sheepish victims every time they enact change to actually get that change to occur. Because the reality is when the victims are less of a percentage than the sheepish victims, the reality is oftentimes they're going to need a shepherd's help. And when you look at all the different countries in the world, what you see are no shepherds. What you're going to notice as you do your own research, look up military capabilities in other countries, look up conflicts they have been involved in, look at what they've done for other people, look at how charitable they are to third world countries and second world countries, people who need resources and people need help. Look up what these other first world, second world countries are offering to the victims and the sheepish victims. Google it yourself. Look it up. When you look it up, what you're going to notice is America is about the only shepherd that exists in this entire world. The rest are predators and sheep. Are you still here? Are you still here? You have no reason to disagree. You don't have good reason to disagree. When we talk about world powers, everyone's mind goes the same place. America, Russia, China, then other countries that can actually fight and defend themselves or have nuclear capabilities. We know North Korea for sure does. We know Iran was, maybe almost did. We know Israel does. Probably some other countries that you can name. But look up this stuff for yourself. Take 10 minutes today. Take 10 minutes today, and then 10 minutes tomorrow. 10 minutes every day is my goal for you. And look up a little bit about each of these countries' capabilities and what they're actually doing to make the world better. Now, I don't want to toot America's horn because America has a lot of problems. America has a lot of freaking sheep. And if we're not careful, we're going to lose our Shepherd status. If it was up to freaking Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson and Megyn Kelly and especially Dave Smith, we would not be shepherds. We would just be sheep. Just sheep. Not involving ourselves in foreign affairs and not ensuring year to year our strategic positions when it comes to what countries we can hit with what is sheepish behavior. It is the mentality of the weak. If you do not look at tomorrow and think, how can I defend myself? If this country turns on me, how can I turn this country into glass? This is reality. If this is not how you're thinking, then you're setting up your children for failure, or maybe their children. It is essential. It is basic survival to ensure that we are the top world leader when it comes to our military. It is basic to ensure that the travel times for our missiles to our enemies is like that. It is basic survival instincts to know that we must be involved. We must be involved. If one of our enemies or our future enemies, Iran for example, who would oppose us in World War III, if World War III happened next year, our enemies are most likely China, Russia, North Korea, Iran, maybe Afghanistan, probably Syria, probably Lebanon, and probably some other countries that you can think of. I'm not sure if every European country would be with us. Who knows? Maybe Hungary would turn. Maybe Hungary would turn on us. So, I just named 2 out of the 3 world powers and a country with a psycho-ass leader who would drop as many suns, I'm talking about atomic bombs, as he possibly could to win a war. Who do we have on our side? Well, look at that. We have Egypt, right? We have Saudi Arabia. We have Israel, the UK, man, so many other countries, probably Australia. We probably have the Scandinavian countries. But wait a minute. On our list, where are the world powers? Where are the superpowers on our list? Oh, that's right. It's just us. Well, I'm sure our allies are actually, spending on the military. They're actually involved. And they're actually planning for their future and their children's. Do you remember what they are? Nope. Notice here, we are a shepherd fighting alongside with one predator and a bunch of freaking sheep. Funny that! Isn't that freaking funny? The one nation we know that would likely get involved and that would actually assist us militarily is Israel. How interesting. How interesting. Wow. In World War III, one of the allies that we're going to want is Israel. Huh. How did that come to be? And how is it that they're probably one of the more effective militaries in our list of allies? What an interesting coincidence. What an interesting coincidence. Now, I've hit on something so important here. We are going to spend an episode talking about Israel's military and military victories. And then we are going to spend that same episode talking about military victories in other countries. And I'm going to show you why it is irrational not to ally with Israel. Not because we need them, because we want them. They are a country that have recently shown that they are actually willing to do what it takes to win a war. We have no idea. We have some idea, but we're not sure to what extent the European nations could actually do anything if China and Russia declared war on the United States, or they decided to declare war on the UK, or if they decided to declare war on Taiwan. What would they actually do? I mean, they declared war on a democratic nation in Ukraine. What is Europe doing? What is Europe doing? What are our allies doing because of the Russian aggression? And why in the world do they think that they're exempt from aggression? Because they're sheep. Because they think like sheep. That's why. That's why. I'm going to cut this off for today. But I've given you a lot to think about. Consider what I've said. I love my child. And I love my family. And I understand that in order for my child and for my children to have a future, I need to ensure that another country can't wipe out 25% of our population. That would give me a 25% chance of never seeing my child and losing my grandchildren. Don't be a sheep. Don't be a sheep. We actually do have to plan for the future. I'm off.